G'day, it's Heath here from pickinglessons.com. Banish Misfortune is such a fun jig to play. In this arrangement we've got two variations. We've got the basic melody that we'll have a look at first, and then we'll bring in a more advanced version which has some more embellishments and ornaments in the melody. In this video we're going to take a look at the basic version of part A and the embellishments that we find in the advanced version. If you head to pickinglessons.com you'll be able to get yourself a copy of the tab. Now this is a three-parter, so we've got 3 parts to the whole tune with 2 variations, so that's all there. In the members section you'll also have the next 2 video lessons where we break down part B and part C, both basic and advanced variations. Plus you've got a play along and a backing track there to download. pickinglessons.com. Okay, so let's start out with a slow play through the basic melody for part A. We'll break it down after that and have a look at some of the techniques that we need just to be able to play that, and then we'll bring in the more advanced ornamentation that we find in the second variation. 1 and 2 and Okay, so that was part A, just the basic variation. Now let's break down the techniques, have a look at what we need to do first just to be able to play that. Then we'll bring in some ornamentation from the advanced version. Now it is 6/8 time being a jig, and what we're going to do for that time signature is really try and emphasize the 2 pulses that we have. So we have 1 and 2 and we're going to play those as downbeats, which is quite challenging because if we look at the first measure, for example, 6/8 notes, down, up, down, down, up, down. So we get this consistent down, up, down, down, up, down. 2 downs in a row there in the middle, and then we're moving on to the next bar in the same way. So down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down. That's the first thing we really want to get right for our picking. So for example, that first measure into the second measure, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. Really emphasizing the pulse. 1 and 2 and 1. That downstroke really just helps to emphasize that pulse in what we're playing. The pickup note, just very quickly, the pickup note, the 16ths here, we have to play those as a down up. Moving into measure 1. Down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down. So our hand speed is going to change to be able to play those 16ths. The second example to look at for the rhythm we find in measure 2. Quarter note, 8th note, 3/8 notes. Quarter note, 8th note, we're going to pick as a down and then an up. That's a little bit easier. So down, up, down for the second measure. Down into the third bar. Let's put those 2 together from the pickup. 1 and 2 and So emphasizing that pulse in what we're doing here in the 6/8 time signature, and then following our picking to suit that accordingly. All right, so moving through, really it's a combination of all those rhythms. In measure 3 we have a dotted quarter note, so that's the whole pulse. 1 and 2 and So for that particular rhythm, just be careful not to rush through that dotted quarter note. Moving through the rest of this part A, we're really just combining the same ideas. So make sure your picking is following those examples we spoke of just before. If you can do that, you'll find that you really generate that nice solid pulse in your playing. Now that's the basic melody. That's challenging enough. That's pretty tricky as it is, just because of the way our picking needs to be structured. Now, bringing in some of the ornaments that we find in the advanced version, let's look at the first measure and compare the 2. So the basic first measure. Now the advanced variation. We're just bringing in this gross note hammer on just to sort of emphasize that second pulse. Pretty nifty. And we do a similar thing in that second bar. So the second bar, basic melody, variation. Again, just emphasizing that pulse. So that hammer on there, I'm using my first finger just so I can get a nice strong hammer on. I'm finding that the second finger into the third is quite tricky to get a strong hammer on there. Just that span is hard to play. Use your first finger, bring it across. You'll find it much easier to get that third finger in for that hammer on. So it's a quick hammer on. You don't want to spend any time on that first finger. We're starting there, but we're basically hammering on that third finger just after we pick. So let's run through that first and second measures, looking at that hammer on, bringing that hammer on in. 2 and basic melody. Advanced variation. Just a nice way of breaking it up, but emphasizing that pulse still in what we're doing. Just brings a little bit more to the melody. Okay, so moving on, the next variation we have is in measure 3. So the basic melody for measure 3. Advanced variation. We're bringing in 16th notes. Now that's a bit more challenging for the right hand. So what we're going to do here, down, down, up, down, down. To catch those 16ths on the 1 and third 8th note count. Basic melody. Variation. Let's put those first 3 measures together. Don't worry about the pickup note, we'll just go from the beginning. So 2 and Okay, let's move on. Practice those up, but let's move on. Now, measure 4. We've just got a little bit more happening there. So the basic version. Variation. We've got the grace note slide. Again, on our pulse, just emphasizing that pulse. Moving through, continue on, let's keep going with the advanced version. The advanced version here. Measure 5. This is a little bit more challenging to get the coordination right, because what we're doing here is we're starting off with the 16ths, then picking down on that second beat on the 3rd fret. So open strings to the 3rd fret. So in context, measure 5. Watch that picking, down, down, up, down, down. Tricky to get that 3rd fret in there. Make sure it's right on the mark, that you're right on time with that one. So that's a nice one. And moving on, just to finish off, measure 7 has a variation as well. So the basic melody for measure 7, the variation, just like the beginning actually. So another grace note hammer on there on that pulse. So the same as measure 1. Okay, so 2 versions there. Basic melody, which is great as it is. That's fine, it's challenging. That's quite challenging anyway with the picking structure. Bring in that extra ornamentation we find there in the advanced version. Can spice it up a little bit. You don't need it, but it certainly adds a little bit more character to the tune. Emphasizing that pulse as we go through. Okay, practice it up. Do take your time with it. It's played at a pretty quick tempo, so do get to know it first, work it up. When you're ready, jump over to pickinglessons.com and we're gonna work through the next 2 parts of this tune. So we've got part B and part C. It's a 3-parter. We'll do the same thing, break down the basic melody, look at the advanced ornamentation that we find in the variation. Pickinglessons.com, I'll see you there.